All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Vav, Daf Zayin, and Sagas Kedushin. So we're going over acceptable ways for the Kedushin to be chal in terms of what the man should go ahead and say. He's being Mekadisher, Kesef. So Tanur Rabbanan, 3 lines on the top, 2 dots. Tanur Rabbanan, and Vav. Start with Vav. Get the Zayin Mitzvah Shem. Hareyat Ishti, Hareyat Rusasi, Hareyat Kinuyali. If you behold, you're my wife, my arusa, my betrothed, my acquisition, Kinuyali, Mikudeshes. Hareyat Sheli, but if he says to her, you are mine, Hareyat Rishusi, or Hareyat Gugali, right? You're in my rishus, right? You're my, I guess, domain. You're bound to me. Also, Mikudeshes, this works. Why don't you just teach all together? Why don't you do 3 and say Mikudeshes, then another 3 Mikudeshes? Shaminu Begarsinu. Right, since he learned it, that way, and as it was taught 3-3, so therefore it was also taught in such a manner. Now different lashonos, some lashonos that we find. Even throughout Tanakh, such as miyuchedesli mahu or miyuedesli or miyuedes. My miyuchedes is the basar echad. Is Rashi brings on the psukim miyuedesli right by Ivria. It says lo yelda mahu ezrasi mahu right ezer kenegdo mahu right negdasi right if you're neged me mahu atzarasi. Or if he says that that he was or she was from her that which is gathered, right? Atzarasi, right? Is right in the pasuk from Shmuel, right? Rashi thinks the pshatim. Or he says tzalasi, right? So it's my rib, right? Sugurasi. Or if he says that you close off to me, or tachti. Right underneath me, mouth fusasi, or that which he was tofes, that which he got mahu, or chasi mahu. So those are the different questions, not necessarily very clear, concise lashon of kedushin. So pashim yachada, actually one of these they were taught at the time of the Brisa ha'omer l'kuchasi. If you were taken from me, harezim b'gudesh, that works. Why shenema ki yikach isha. The lashon of yikach is used in the pasuk by marriage. So charufasi mahu. What if he says lashon of charufasi? So tasha like charufa. So let's see the Tanya. Right. So he's and now over there. That's the case of when there's Eved Ivri when he's takes a shipment cananis. So it says the time when the Rice Hayimer Charufasi Mikudeshes does work. Shekain Yehuda Karin Arusa Charufa, because we find in Yehuda, the area of Yehuda, that they call an Arusa Charufa. Therefore, that's the lashon of that. Yehuda Havi Yehuda de Alma. I understand. So just because in that location is so, it should work everywhere. So Achi Kamar Hayimer Charufasi Mikudeshes. Now the pasuk says V'hi Shivka Charufa. That she is the Shivka Charufa Leish. V'hi Shivka Nichrafis Leish. I skipped the pasuk. That's the line. Right, but then furthermore, not only is there a pasuk, the Yehuda currently Rusa Charufa, right? In Yehuda we find that they call it Rusa Charufa. Whereas Yehuda v'Olakra, I understand. You have a pasuk and you're bringing Yehuda as a raya for the pasuk. It's in the pasuk. What do you need that in Yehuda this is the lashon that they use? The Alihaki Kamer Ha'imeh Charufa, but Yehuda Mikudeshes. One is Charufa in Yehuda, then it's Mikudeshes came to Yehuda currently Rusa Charufa because they use lashon for Rusa Charufa. And it was considered to be something which is brought in the pasuk. So now, the Maya Skina. What is the guy talking about when he says charufa? If he's talking to her, let's say not matters about him, being Mekadesh her, or let's say he was married to her and it was like regarding a get. We'll soon see that's a larger discussion. How does she know what he's talking about? If they weren't talking on marriage at all, they were talking about the weather and baseball. Right? Golf, right? Or maybe he was talking with her about matters of marriage and divorce, in this case, marriage. Even if he doesn't say anything to her, he's talking about, yeah, I should really be Mekadesh to you, and then all of a sudden he gives her a ring. The Tanai we learn in the Mishnah, Pirish, and he doesn't explain, what he, why he's giving it to her. And he says, here, accept this. So Rabbi Yossi says that's sufficient, and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you have to say Harei Mekudesh Li. The Amar Ravun Amar Shmuel halach Rabbi Yossi. Halach is like Rabbi Yossi, who says you don't need to do anything. So it's just, if they're talking about marriage and he gives her something, that's sufficient. So why over here, if the Lasha does Harufa work, they're talking about marriage, even if he says nothing, it should work, according to the halacha. I'm sorry? So let's say there were yeah, I guess there are 8 in there, there are witnesses there. So really, he was talking to her about matters of marriage or divorce, in this case, marriage. Now, if he gives her anything and is quiet, that works. So we say, okay, just like that price before. However, how come I ask on the Yav love, Amar love, Bahani Lishne? But once he gives her, and then he says this Lashana, Bahaki Kamad Bailu, and this is the question. Sahani Lishne Kedusha. If is it Lashon Kedusha, and therefore everything is good, Kamarle. I do Malamalaka Kamarla. Maybe he just means that, like, he's going to acquire her to be his, to be his maidservant. And then the Lashon of Charufa actually ruins it. Right? Can apply something else. So therefore, take her. So therefore, the Gemara doesn't give a teros in this case.
What's the whole deal with Gita here?
So it really is insignificant in our case, but it really fits from the brisa. Right? So Kufa. Now we're actually going to bring that brisa. Hayam Medaber Isha al Iska Gita. If he was talking to his wife about matters of divorce, or he was talking to a single woman about kedusha, or he was talking to a single woman about potentially marrying her. The Nasan La Gita V'Kedusha, and then he gives her either a get in the case of when he was married to her, and he gives her a get, or Kedushin, maybe a Shtar Kedushin, V'Loi Pirish, and he doesn't say what, Rabbi Yossi Amir Dayo, Rabbi Yehuda Amir Tzech Lefarish. Rabbi Yehuda says sufficient, and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you have to say this is your get, or this is your Shtar Kedushin, or your casual Kedushin. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda, as we saw earlier, Amar Shmuel, V'Husha, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, V'Husha Eiskin Ba'Yiseinyan. When they were talking about marriage, and they were still talking about matters of marriage and divorce, and for also in and Kitanai, it's actually machlekes. Rabbi Aimer, Rabbi says you have to speak of matters like and Rabbi Shimon Aimer, even they're not talking about Sainian. Smar says, I understand. Be love. How does she know what it's for if they weren't talking at all about matters of marriage? Right? Really, they were talking about it earlier. And then over here, they're talking about perhaps other matters in terms of support or stuff like or matters like that. And therefore, it was related, but it wasn't necessarily talking about him acquiring her. And Amar Rav Huna, Amar Shmuel, in this case. And Amar Lei Rav Yemel Rav Ashi, the Elo Hadam Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kol Sheina Yodev Ativ Git in the Kedushin Lo Yehei Lo Osek Imahem. All right. So we do have a halacha that a person should not go ahead and be like a Masader Kedushin or involve himself in matters of Gittin or Kedushin unless he knows all the halachas. So what about this halacha, right? Of knowing in terms of he has to be, and this if he just gives it to her, he has to be Osek Inyan the Inyan Osek. Afilo Shmei Lei Had Rav Huna Amar Shmuel. Does that mean? Let's say he never heard this halacha. Can he still, go ahead and be, Masader Kedushin? Yeah. This is included in that. In other words, this is one of those halacha that a person is familiar with. He's not familiar with, and he should not be Isaac the Gittin the Kedushin. Fine. 4 lines from the bottom. So too by divorce, Nasan Gita Harei Meshulachas. He says to her, "You are Meshulachas, you're sent. Harei Megoreshes, Harei Muteres Adam, you're permissible to every man. Harei He Megoreshes." These lashonos do work. We actually seen these cases before. And it says pshita. Right, but he has to. But there should be that her acknowledgement that she is aware that she's.
What's going
Saw
on?
in Gittin, there was deep.
Right. We saw we saw those cases. In other words, if he says, "Oh, this is just your your star," and she thinks it's a star mechira, and she opens up and it's the get. So that was that first require, right? But
Yeah, it has to be acknowledged that she knows what's going
And I think there still is deeper with it, even when you do that. Meaning
the witness
toucher
of those.
becomes her, yeah, but I think you still have to say, all right, entire Saladam and all that kind of stuff. Or that's just
Right, so right, so you do have to inform her. Because we had cases, I remember by Gittin, we had cases where, right, it was thought for a different star. We said he was scared, right, or something like that. Then he didn't say he wanted to avoid it.
You have to really re-say it.
Right, yeah. Do you have to go back and do it?
Give it and
right,
re-say it.
give it and re-say it, or just right. So all right. So this is pshita nasan lagita. If he gives his wife a get, v'amarla l'ishta, he tells his wife, "Hare as bascharin." You're a free woman. Lo amar leiklo. He hasn't said anything because this is your free woman. Free woman is not kedushin. That's lashon by freeing a slave. Amar lo l'shivchasai. If he says to a shivcha, "Hare amuteres l'chol adam," you're mutter to any man. Lomer leiklum. So that is not the lashon of cherus, of freedom. That is the lashon of a person when he divorces his wife. If he says to his wife, "You are to yourself," is he telling her that basically you keep your wages? Or maybe he's saying that you're to yourself, meaning you're divorced. So Tashma, come listen. The time then the Raisa Gufa shall get shechur. What's the essence of a get shechur? Hareas baschayrin, hareas asmacha. Right, you are baschayrin, and you are to yourself. Hare asahashta ma evid kanani or atat. Right, in the case of a get shechur too. Let's say male slave. Ma evid kanani the kind of the gufe. So an evid kanani, which he himself is owned completely to the master. Kiyamalei hareas asmacha legam. Right. So the isha, so to a woman that he does not acquire her completely, like and certainly that she should get her freedom. And Amarle Ravina Lavashi Amarle Abda Ein Li Esig B'cha. Man says to a slave, "I have no dealings with you." So what do we say there? Me, I mean, Ein Li Esig B'cha Lagamre. Is he say I have no matters with you? In other words, you're free. Dilma, we say Lamalacha for work. Basically, you're off now. You don't have to work. Rav Nachman Rashi. Then some say Rav Chanim Mechuzay Rashi. So Tashma, come listen. Hamaycher Avdal Kachavim. One who goes and sells his evet to Rav Kachavim. Yatza lecheres. He goes free because he's basically removing obligation of mitzvahs from him. But Tzarich get shechur me Rabbo Rishon. He needs a get shechur from Rabbo Rishon, and on that Amar Shegamliel b'medvar murim. What are you talking about? Shalei kasav Allah. And he didn't write him an own. So I know is shechur. But if he writes him an I know, then that is his emancipation. That's his freedom. Seichi Damiono, as the Gemara asks, right? That's how I didn't explain. What was this owner you're talking about? Sheshes, the cause of law. When he writes to him, if you run away, mimenu from this new master, I have no dealings with you. So you see over here that when he says, I have no dealings with you, meaning you're free. Now, you have no shaykhs to me. So too, we see that if one used that lashon to his eved, then that would go ahead and free him up. Fine. Middle line looks like, I'm trying to think which one's more top or bottom. So Amar Abai, smack in the middle of Vavam and Beis by the two dots. Right, a lot of interpretations of this. My son wrote up a whole book on this. So Hamakadesh b'milva eina mikudeshes. This is like the meat and potatoes of kedushin. One is Makadesh b'milva, one who marries a woman on a loan. So what is this case? So there's various interpretations. So Rashi says we're talking about a case of basically he says I gave you a loan, right? I gave you a loan last month, right? That money I gave you. So that money I gave you. So even if he goes ahead and says, okay, you can keep that money, right? That I gave you a month ago. therefore, so she really had to pay back $100. So we know a penny saved is a penny earned. So therefore, it's like he's giving her $100 because she gets to keep the $100 that she's supposed to pay him back. So does not work. Why is that? Because at the time of marriage, they're supposed to be given over, and a loan is once a loan is given, it's basically, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically absorbed into the assets of the borrower, and therefore it's not considered to be in existence. It's not an item. It's just kesef, right? It's just money, right? So once again, so it's no longer in existence. So therefore, when he says to her, "You can keep the money, the $100, you don't have to pay me back," even though now her liabilities is $100 less, doesn't make a difference, right? That money, he's not giving her anything at the time. Even if she did spend it, even the $100 bill is still in her house, right? But once someone gets a loan of money, right, it's considered to be absorbed into that person, and therefore he's not giving her anything of the time of the kedushin and Eina Mekudeshes. But if he says to her, "Bahanas milva," says, "Will you be mekadesh to me with the hanas milva?" Which we're going to explain. Then Mekudeshes does work. However, however, one should not do that because it appears like ribbis. It's like ribbis derabbanan. So hi hanas milva hechidan. What's this case of hanas milva? If you talk about a case of where he was, let's say he lent her 4, and he says you got to pay back 5, and then the fifth one, the fifth, $100, whatever, you don't have to pay me back, right? So how ribis malya? That's mamish ribis that case, right? And furthermore, hainu milva. That's the same problem with milva. He already gave her a loan, and she was supposed to pay back 500, and it was only $400 loan. So once that money, if it was already lent earlier, so it's already considered to be absorbed in her assets, and therefore it's not in existence and should not be worked. So no.
What's he doing? He's forgiving.
He was forgiving the extra amount that she was supposed to pay back. It originally was interest, and he said forgive the interest. So the Gemara says that's not haramas ribis. That's ribis me'aliosa. That's literally ribis, right? In that case. And furthermore, he also has the same issue of Mekadesh B'milva that doesn't work. So Gemara answers now, he gave her a loan of $100. He says, "Will you be Mekadesh me with the benefit of the due date is September 1st? Will you benefit me I will move that repayment date to January 1st to get an extra 4 months." That is mutter. However, that's haramas ribis. It appears like ribis, and therefore that shouldn't be good. Why is that okay? Because normally, in order to get your loan extended, you probably have to go ahead and pay someone's good friend, the lender's good friend, and say, "Hey, I'll give you $20. Can you just tell them that maybe make the loan due in 4 months from now? I don't have the money right now." So therefore, there's an actual expense, right? There's an actual hana, right, that's given over, and therefore with that she's mekudeshes. Now, one thing I don't know if I've explained. But the number one rule when it comes to kedushin by kinyanim is there has to be gemiras das. In other words, when we talk about the kesef kedushin, in order for her to give over her ishus, right? She has to get something in return in order that will allow her to get it over. It has to be a transaction. So she has to receive something of value, of at least a pruta, in order to give up her ishus. So over here, she's receiving a service because normally to get someone to go ahead and do it, it's going to cost her $20. So she just got a free $20 value, right? Or not free. And with that $20 value, she's allowing herself to be a consulting fee, and she gets to save it. So Amar Rava Elef Mana Almana Shef Israeli B'Mecher. So here is your $100 on the condition that you return it to me. So b'mecher leikana. When it comes to an item, in other words, let's say I want to go ahead and buy Eddie's bicycle, and I say, "Here's $100, but return it to me. You can have it, but you have to return it to me in a week." That does not work. Leikana, right? There was no transaction. I didn't give it anything over. The isha, I give a woman, "Here's the ring, but you have to return it to me in a week." And mekudeshes, the pinyin haben, because the pinyin haben, ein bana padui. Then the son is not redeemed. However, b'truma yatsa yedei nasina. When it comes to truma, if I give it to a kohen, then he can give it back to me. Now this item that he gave me back, it still has a halakha of truma, but it's considered as if I gave truma and I can go ahead and sell it, let's say, to another kohen. Okay, it does work by truma. However, it's also do it because it appears like another case which is banned. Basically, kohanim helping people out over by the granary, because then the kohanim will go ahead and kiss up and basically be like first in line to get the people's truma. Now, my kasav, what do they hold regarding this give a gifting and then returning? My kasav, so my kasav rab, if he's held that a gift and the condition to return it is shema matan, is considered to be indeed a gift, then it should work in all these cases. It should work for a transaction to buy a bicycle. It should work to go ahead and acquire a woman for your wife, right? It should work in the opinion of Ben. It should work. If it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work at all, so why is it considered like he gave this truma, right? And therefore his produce is not teva. And furthermore, Rava holds in other cases that it is considered to be a complete giving. It isn't considered to be in the person's possession, the one who receives it for a week time, right? Rava. Hey, look, so someone says the first day, we know by the first day of a sukkah, one has to own his lulav and esrog. So if he doesn't have, so what do you do? You have to give someone as a complete matana, right? This is yours, right? So you acquire it. Now, you can give it back after you own it, right? So you own it, so you use it, then you give it back. Well, let's say the person says, I'll give it to you, it's yours, but you have to give it back, right? But it's completely yours for the 10 minutes. Does that work or not? So says Rava, if you take, hey, take this on the condition to go ahead and you return it, and not look at zero, then he uses it, then he returns it, Yatsa, he's fulfilled his obligation, he owns it. We see that matana amanas lahachzir is considered to be a good matana. However, he doesn't return it, lo Yatsa, he has to fulfill his obligation. Why? Because it's considered to be gazel in that case. Fine. But we see matana amanas lahachzir is considered to be a good a gift. If that's the case, why shouldn't a woman be acquired? Why shouldn't the opinion of Ben work? Why shouldn't the sale work? Really, all of them work except for a woman. Why? Because when you give something and then you return it back, it has the appearance of chalipin, right? When we do chalipin, right, what really happens is Ram gives you his very expensive pen and you lift it up, right? So it could be that you could walk away with it and it's yours if you choose to do so, right? Which is the way we like to do it. Or, right, it's really you're taking it for the kinyan, but then you're returning it. All right, it's amanas lahachzir. So therefore, it's like chalipin, and chalipin does not work to acquire a woman, right? Katzav shtar bia work. Chalipin, which is another way of doing like a kinyan suder, right? It's another way of doing the a transaction. So chalipin does not work by kedusha. And Amalei Rafuna Mar Parade Rav the Chem Ravashi Hachi Aminan Mishmei the Rava Kvasifa. Yes, and this is the way we taught. That Rava taught just like you. In other words, all these work Matan Masachs work except for a woman because it appears like Chalip. Fine. Bottom line, Amar Rava Tain Mana Leplaini. If the woman says, give $100 to Bob, the Kadesh Lecha, and then I will be Mekudeshes to you. Mekudeshes. And then when he gives it to her, I guess he says, be Mekadesh to me. Mekudeshes, right? Now he has to, say something, right? Because we saw earlier that if she says it, right, the man has to do it, not the woman, right? I'm Mekudesh to, that doesn't work. But she says basically, the money that she's not receiving any money. She's not receiving any kesef. The only service that's going on is basically him doing what she's saying by give $100 to Bob. He's being a delivery man, right? He's being the Amazon getter. I'm sorry? So this is Mukadeshes, the din arif, like a co-signer. Why? What does it mean, din arif? So arif, laf, afagav, mati hanaliyade, even though a co-signer, right? So I go to Levi for a loan. I need $100. Levi does not trust me. So Ozzy says, okay, I will co-sign for your loan. So Azi, even though there is no pleasure, Azi does not get anything out of it besides being a nice guy. Nevertheless, he nevertheless is being mechai himself, right? So to this woman, even though she's not deriving any pleasure in her physically, she's allowing herself to go out and be acquired. So therefore, that works medin arif. Now, case number 2. So let's say someone says, here is $100, and go ahead. He says to his shaliach, see that woman over there, Natalie, right? Here's $100, and go be my shaliach to be Mekadesh Natalie for me. Here's the $100. The shaliach goes and uses his own money to go ahead and Mekadesh Natalie for me, not for himself, for me. Nikudeshes Medin Evet Kanani. This works because it works no different than Evet Kanani. What do you mean? Evet Kanani lav afagad chaser v'loimide kakani nafshe. So Evet Kanani, if someone goes ahead and ransoms or redeems an Evet Kanani, so nothing came out of the Evet Kanani's pocket. Nevertheless, he acquires his freedom. So I governami. So too, this husband, even though he's not out his $100 because the shliach uses his own money and returns his $100, so nevertheless, he's able to go ahead, right, he's able to go ahead and acquire this woman. Yeah.
Wait, someone redeems an Evet Kanani.
Right.
And the Evet Kanani then gains his
freedom. Right.
Freedom.
Someone says, okay, you have an Evet Kanani, so I'll go ahead and I'll be paid this Evet Kanani and let him go free. Let him go free, let him, convert or whatever it is, right? So they give the master the money. So even though somebody else paid, the Evet is the recipient, right? The Evet is the recipient of the freedom, right? So to over here in this case, right? Over here, the
Why doesn't he become an Evet to the person who redeemed it?
Because there wasn't a sale in that case. And Echanami, he probably could have sold if it was another Jew, he could have bought it off him, but that wasn't what was going on there, right? So if one wants to go ahead and emancipate him, right? It says, Koines asma v'kesef aydecher, shecher padinosa. I'm just reading from Rashi with my name. Who koine asma v'yetze lecheres v'afagad lechaser ihu. Right, it wasn't his money, he still goes free. Now, last case, that was case number 2. So first case is Din Arif. Second case was Din Evet Kanani. Third case, Tain Mandala Plani, the Kadesh Ani. So let's say, so she says, give the money to Bob, right? And I will be Makadesh to him, to Bob. All right. Tema Pavakadesh Lo. Mekudeshes medin shnehem. She is mekudeshes, right, to the guy Bob, right? And she's, she gave the guy money, or he gave money, right? She told him, right? Tain mana, right? You give, not halef money, right? You give money, right? So and so. Then it works, but you have to use both halachas. Why? Aref. Why is it medin aref? So lav afagav deloy kamati hanaliyade kamashabi nafshe, right? So by already we find even though no pleasure came to his mishaben himself. So Aisanami. So to this woman, afagav kamati hanaliyade, even though she's not receiving anything, kamakani nafshe, she's makani herself. She's knocking herself over. So Gar says midami. Arev in a case of arev hide the kakani le kachasim amena. The one who is receiving an arev. So in the case of when Azi when he was my arev, so I was the one who received Azi's gift or hana, right? But I was chaser something. I was out $100 because I was, or Levi was out. Excuse me, Levi was out the $100, right? And therefore, so Levi got the benefit of Azi, right? So the arev hide hakani le kachasim amena. So hi gavra kakani le laisa. So in this case, right, the guy Bob who's getting he's acquiring the woman like a chasav like midei. He's not out any money. Opposite, he's getting money. So it's different. So our answers. So Avid Kanani Yochiach. So no, Avid Kanani fills that in. Like a chasim amayna. the kakani nafshe, the Kanani, right? He's not being chas any money, and nevertheless he acquires himself. So Gemara says, "Mi dami hasam hachtaka makni kakani." Over there, right? The one that is going to head and who is, he gives away, so he gets the money. But over here, the woman she's giving herself up is not getting anything. So Ariv Yachiyav. So therefore, that's also Medin Ariv. Therefore, is yet double. So therefore, nothing comes to her in this case, and therefore she's Meshavet herself. And also Eved Kanani, that the one who's receiving benefit gets something without giving up anything, and therefore it's Medin Shnehem in this case where she tells somebody, "Go give $100 to Bob, and I'll be Mekadesh to him." Right. So Rashi pointed out, like the top Rashi on the page, right? Kshunas lo, when she gives him Amar love, and he tells her he's Kachili, right? And he says, "Be Mekadesh to me." So he does. She's the one who initiates it, but he's the one in the end who says, "Be Mekadesh me." But the way the money was given, it wasn't like him giving money to her. The money was being, given in a different way.
Like we saw earlier, if they were just like a Sukkot Bosuinia, maybe he doesn't have to even say it.
Right, but over there, but that was clear in that case because he was giving her something of value, and therefore there was something returned over here. Whereas the item of value that she's receiving, so therefore it's dinar. Right, so somebody else, right. So by Rava, Heluch mana v'kadesh ani lecha. Right? Mahu. So what in this case? She says, take this mana and I'll become Mekadesh to you. What is the law? So Marzusha Mishveda Pavamikudashes. It works. So everyone says, I'm a little Vashti Marzusha. You can't have it in a chasim, I understand. So obviously it can't be the case of where she's just saying be Mekadesh, right? She's giving the money, the Pasha case, because we just said that as we saw earlier, it doesn't work. So what's going on over here? So maybe you think that, since he's acquiring the $100, so maybe he's acquiring the $100 and agav, he's acquiring $100, he's acquiring the woman, right? Right. So Imkain, Havilei Nechasim Sheyesh Lemachrayis, Nikni Nechasim Shein Lemachrayis. If that's the case, now normally, right, a person acquires a yard, and by acquiring the yard, you acquire the rake, right, with it, right? Agav, the land, you get the rake. But we don't find, and so in this case, you're acquiring the money, and agav, the money, you're acquiring the woman. This is difficult to understand, right? Because we learned the opposite, right? It is the case of where basically I'm giving you a rake, and agav the rake, you acquire the land, right? We learn the opposite. Nechasim that do not have achrayas, such as movable objects, nicknamed im nechasim sheish achrayas. Those can be acquired with, let's say, real estate. Now you acquire the real estate, and with the real estate comes movable objects. All right, because of Shara Chazaka. And then as long as you acquire the land with Kesef Shara Chazaka. But not the other way around. So as far as the Amr Law Agav, who says in this case of Agav that you acquire the $100 and Agav the $100, you acquire the woman. Hacha bi Adam Chashuv Askinan. Over here, we're talking about that the man that she's been Kadesh with is Adam Chashuv. Right? That since he's such a chashuv person, right? So such a chashuv person, by her giving him something, right, and him accepting her gift, there's hana to that. So there, with that hana that she's receiving, she's makne herself. It's supposed to be a chashuv person, because then you don't have to pay for kiddush. All right, Itamar Nami, a little bit further down than 60% down, and Zayin and Aleph. Itamar Nami, Shmei Derava, V'chein Le'inyan Memayim. These works in terms of also all these cases we had before. Right, Rashi explains the cases. Right, Memayna. Right, the person sells someone a field, and he says, okay, instead of giving me the money, give him the money. Then we kaddish me stuff. It's similar to that. With Sricha, and we need to teach us these halachas of Mitin Arev, Midin Abikrani, Midin Shnehem, both in Kedushin and also by cases of transactions, let's say, of fields. Diashmin and Kedushin, if we only talk by Kedushin, that a woman would be Makadesh for nothing. right? Like a Reish Lakish. Dam Reish Lakish, Tal Misav Tan, 2 millisiva armlo, right? It's better to go ahead and sit two, even if you're not happy, than be alone. Anything is better than being alone. And therefore, a woman would be mekadeshel for anything. But over there, when by sales, right, you need you need market value. If we just learn these halachas by transactions, by sales, by money matters, and ultimately a person can be meichel and give up on the sale price. Right? That works. That one is allowed to. However, about kedushin, but kedushin, you can't just do it for nothing. She says, okay, you can be mekadesh me with zero. That doesn't work, right? So therefore, we have to teach the cases both in kedushin and in mum. Fine, 2 dots, top line or top the white lines. If he says to a woman, be mekadesh to half of me, she's mekudeshes. If he says to her, chatziecha mekudeshes, half of you will be mekadesh to me, eina mekudeshes, that doesn't work. So why? So Amalei Abai L'Rova. So Ma'ishna Chatziach Mekadesh L'Dein Mekadesh. What's the reason why if he says to her half of you is Mekadesh to me, it does not work? So Isha Marachman of Leichatzi. Is it because the Torah says man has to marry a woman and not a half woman? So Chanami Isha Marachman of Leichatzi. It says man, not half man. So Amalei Hachiyash. No. This is the difference. Hasam Isha Lebeitrei Leichazia. A woman is not able to go ahead and be married to 2 men. A person can't have half of married to 2 women. So therefore, half of me is married to Rachel and half of me is married to Leah, and it's no problem. But she can't be married to 2 men. This is what it means to say. If I want to marry somebody else, then this evening I'll go ahead and be able to marry somebody else.
It means you got to share me with somebody else. But he says he means.
His chatzia.
You're married to me, but you're going to share me with somebody else.
Right, and I was right.
Half of it can't be shared.
Right, exactly. So Amarle Marizucha Bred Marla Ravina said, I Nishtila the Kedusha Bekula. Why don't we say like this? In the case of Al Sivim Mekadesh to half of you, to the woman, right? So let's say it works, and then it spreads to the rest of her body. And then she's fully married, right? Miloi Tanya, do we now learn another case? A person says this leg of this animal is an oila. Take kula oila. The entire animal becomes an oila. Even according to the opinion who holds that it does not go ahead and spread to the rest of the animal, the entire animal is not an oila. That's only if it's like a limb, which if you sever the limb, then the animal won't die. But if he's makdish something that is half of it, like you take an axe and chop it down the middle, it's gonna die, right? It will be an olam. So over here, it should spread, right? You chop a woman in half with an axe. I don't care which way you want to chop her, sideways, up and down. It's not gonna work. So yours is me dummy. How can you compare the two? Hasam behema over there. It's just an animal. Animal has no das. So there's nothing to prevent the kedusha from spreading. Hacha das acheres, right? There's a das acheres. There's a woman involved. If she doesn't want to spread the rest of her body, she has das. It doesn't. So therefore, it's not the same. So haladami el hadam Rabbi Yechon. Tell us what Rabbi Yechon says. Behema shashnei shutfin. So an animal owned by 2 partners, hiktish chatzia. If let's say one partner was makdish his half, so now the animal is half and half. And then he went there and he bought the other partner out, and he was makdish it. Kedusha, v'ikdisha. So kedusha ve'ena kriva. It is the entire animal is kadosh. However, it cannot be offered. Right? You have to go ahead and wait to go ahead and redeem it and use that money towards the karbanos. Right? V'ikdisha kedusha ve'ena kriva. V'ayisa temura. And it is effective to make a tamura, right? If one goes ahead and wants to exchange that the kedusha of this, which is kedusha ve'ena kriva, will go ahead and transfer to the other animal. Tamura is like it. So this would be a similar case where it does not. She cannot be mekudeshes because it doesn't all come at once.
Why can't the hema be kriva? Why can't it be?
So shmamina, let's see. So shmamina tlas. We're going from there 3 things. So shma mina balei. First of all, we learned that something which is nitcha dichui. as something at some point where it's not usable. So then that it being not usable, it retains its status as not being used, as not being usable. So over here, one chiddush is that since when the animal was half and half, right? When the animal was half and half, because the moment the one partner was makdish's animal, so it's half and half. You can't go ahead and go ahead and chef it and barbecue it, right? Because it's half of its kedusha, and you also can't go ahead and offer it because you can't go ahead and bring an animal which is half of it is chulin, right? So therefore, this animal is stuck, right? And once it's stuck, so we see first of all here that being nidcha, right? Balichai, maybe there's a story to say that while it's alive, they could change statuses, and until it dies. So when you were outside, we explained the case. There's two partners. One of them was makdish and the other one was not. That was at the bottom of the page. Yeah, right.
So permanent deferment.
So permanent deferment. So first of all, deferment can occur in a live animal. You don't say that live animal can change statuses. Ushmamina, second. Dichui mekaravi dichui. That's the dichui from the beginning, right? It's only what happens at the beginning. That is the dichui that can't wait and change, and then dichui. Ushmamina yesh dichui bedam. And also there's dichui bedam because over here, right? It couldn't be offered. The kedusha was the kedusha's dam. It wasn't kedusha's goof because you couldn't offer it. And nevertheless, it is considered to be dichui permanently. So to here by the woman, right? This woman is half and half. It's dichui. She would not be able to go ahead and to spread to be fully mekadesh to the husband, just like the animal is not able to be fully hektish to be offered. So 2 lines from the top of Zion of base. By Rava, so Rava has a kasha, chatziecha, b'chatzi pruta, b'chatziech b'chatzi pruta. So he says half of you for half pruta, half of you for half pruta. Mahu. So kevan chatzi pruta. Since he says it's half of the pascha, therefore that's what he meant. And we know half pruta doesn't work; it has to be a full pruta. Or maybe he's counting, right? Everyone knows it has to be a pruta. And when he says chatzi pruta, he's not done explaining what he wants to go ahead and acquire.
So he's saying to the woman,
Right. Half you for half pruta, and half you for
the other half.
So does that work or not? Or is it like one statement, and therefore it doesn't work? And if it says really in that case it does work, what if he says like this? Since he says half of you for a pruta, maybe he's ending it there, or maybe it's a little different. Wow. Pruta, Pascal no. So since he says pruta, it's stopping. Or maybe since the same day, right? That's all considered to be counted. If you say maybe in that case it's a one day, so it's a continuation. What if he says a pruta for half of you today and a pruta for half of you tomorrow? What do we say in that case? Since it says tomorrow, so that's a new transaction. Therefore, and half of you doesn't work. Or maybe he's saying that the transaction is going to start today and it won't end until tomorrow,
So
and therefore it would work.
If he sincerely wants to marry her,
Right.
he gives her half a pruta and says, "This is your first installment, and when I get to a pruta, I'll marry you."
So that case will be different,
Yeah.
right? Because over here he's saying half of you. I mean, the big issue is the amount that he's saying chatziacha. And since he's saying half of you, maybe that which he's saying is only in half her, and we just learned that half you doesn't work. But in that case, he's been Makadish Oliver. The question is that considered to be kesef or not? That we have to see. Over here, there's sufficient amount of money. In your case, it's a lack of money. That's the issue. Over here,
right.
it's the
lack
wrong
of
lack of her. Right. Right. So let's say it says Shnei chatziecha bepruta. Your 2 halves for a pruta mahu. Over here, it's one time, and therefore more. Dilma ein isha miskadesh t'chatzin klal. You can't start bringing in halves. Take them. So the Gemara does not give it to us. Yeah. We have a couple more. So by Rava, yeah, you've been around some time now. Yeah, you sort of sometimes anticipated. Very good. So by Rava shnei b'nei sechel l'shnei b'nei b'pruta. What about this? The person says, okay, you got 2 daughters, I got 2 sons. Your 2 daughters, my 2 sons, and here's a pruta. Mahu basar noisei nemakabel azlina vayikim amayna. Do we say that the person who is giving and receiving, and therefore the father, right, is receiving a pruta, therefore he can give off, and the giver is giving a pruta. We say each and every one that lacks a pruta. So take you once again to take. And your daughter and your cow for a pruta. Mahu. Do we say that half the pruta is for the cow, half it's for the girl, and therefore it's not good? I dilma bizcha bepruta, or maybe the daughter is for the full pruta, and therefore she would be mikudeshes, and therefore the cow would just be acquired through mashicha. Take it, right? Doesn't happen. So by Rav Ashi, what about bizcha v'karka pruta? Same question, but your daughter and land with the pruta. Mahu bizcha b'chatzi pruta v'karka pruta, half and half, and therefore it would not work because half pruta would not work for a girl. I dilma bizcha bepruta, your daughter gets the full prutas for her, v'karka and the karka is b'chazaka. And then that's what Chazaka take. Fine. The last case, which will spill into the top of Amar Aleph. So let's get through this. How Gaber the Akdish Bishirai. There was a person who was Makdish, a woman. He gave her silk. He gave her some material of silk, right? Clearly worth a pruta. Now, Rabbi Omar, you don't have to go ahead and know exactly how much it is.
No appraisal.
No appraisal. It's $50, $100. It's more than a pruta. Right, so that's why a ring, they don't use, let's say, a diamond ring. They use something which is no, but the diamond is no, right. No big fluctuation in prices, clarity to this and that. So a regular ring, right? There's 24 karat gold or whatever it is, and therefore it really goes by the weight, right? So let's see. Rabbi, my let's say Chashuma. Rabbi says does not require. Rav Yosef, I would say Chashuma. So Gemara says wait. If he tells her any amount, be mekadosh, whatever it's worth. Everyone agrees they don't require shuma because it's worth at least a pruta, and that's what he's guaranteeing. And if he tells her it's worth 50, and it turns out afterwards now worth 50, it's not worth it, and therefore it would not be kadeshes. So keep pleading. Was this machlokes in Rabbi Rav Yosef? He told her it's 50. Here, 50. There's no appraisal, and it turns out, in the end, years later, they figured out it was worth 50. So Rabbi, right? Rabbi, you don't need a shuma. Why? Because it was worth 50, and that's what he said. Everything is good. No, you do need shuma. Why? Since a woman does not know the true value of these silks, therefore she cannot have Gemira's das in order to go ahead and be makna herself over. So that was that one version. And even any amount, there is a machlekes over here. Why? What is something which is shava kesef equal to kesef? In other words, that it's something either money or something worth money, right? Ma kesef the case. If someone gives someone $100 bill, they know the value of it. It's $100. So if shava kesef works like kesef, it should be something that is known value. So I know the value of this $100 bill is $100. So shava kesef nami the kind. So to this shava kesef should also be something that we know the exact value at the time of the transaction. So therefore, says it's Rav Yosef, right? Says Rav Yosef, it needs to go ahead and be appraised at the time. And then Rav Yosef, how do we know that? The time of the Brisa says because of miknas. So because of who nikna. So it says over there, right? The person has years to go ahead and work off from his servitude, and it says from mikasef miknaso, right? So it says from the money from his purchase, right? Mikasef hu nikna, nikna betfu v'kelim. He's only purchased with kasef, and he's not purchased with grains or kelim or utensils. So high tfu v'kelim. What does it mean that you can't acquire with tfu or kelim? If you said it can't be used at all, so yashib gulasa emrachman. Right, the words over there. The pasuk says, "Imod rabbis b'shan lefian yashib gulas mekasem miknaso." So yashib gulas is returned to any amount. We're going over there. Emrachman the rabbis shavak kesef kesef over there. It's inclusive of shavak kesef. It's included in tfu and kelim. So the last move is shavak pruta. So I understand. Okay, so they can work. Now, if they're not worth a sheva pruta, if the kesef and the tfua and the kelim are not worth sheva pruta, my tfua gave the kelim. Why are you talking about tfua kelim? I feel kesef nami. Even kesef wouldn't work because it's not sheva pruta. Elolav, the isbu sheva pruta. No, they were worth the tfua and kelim were worth a pruta. The cave and like kaitzi low, but since there wasn't known how much this tvua and kalim work, it doesn't work. So you see over there that you can go ahead and work it off or pay with tvua and kalim as long as you know the amount, says Rav Yosef. So therefore, same thing by the shirai, right? By the silks, right? As you can go ahead and use other things that's not money, as long as you know the established amount, just like money, right? So therefore, it has to be something which is kayetz. So the Tairas Kasef Hunikna. It means over there that something done through the means of kasef. Kasef is you give money and then you get an object back for that money. So anything can be given but Taras Kasef. They nikna but Taras Tvu V'Kelim, but it's not given through Taras Tvu V'Kelim. What's this kinyan of grains and kalim? Ma'aniu chalipin. That's chalipin. That's the exchange. Now there's two types of chalipin, right? It's the whole thing over there. But you say chalipin that there's different. Like we mentioned earlier, right? That a woman can't be acquired through chalipin, right? So chalipin is a type of transaction. So therefore, we're saying that only the person that could be redeemed or the woman could be purchased only through means of kasef, but not means of chalipin. I Rav Nachman over Peiros of the Chalipin. According to Rav Nachman, all the pairs cannot be acquired to the Chalipin. Then what are you going to say here in this case? Because then over there, you don't need to say it at all. It's El Yelam Delasbu Shav Pruta. We're talking about where the Kalim and the Tvua are now with the Pruta. To come my area Tvua Kalim. So you say, okay, why even Tvua Kalim? Even Kasef shouldn't work. I feel Kasef Nami. So it says, I feel Kasef Nami. So let me buy Kamar. So not only this, let me buy Kasef, the East Bay Sheva Pruta, Elo Lo. Not only Kasef, that if there's a Sheva Pruta, yes, but no. About two of a Kalim, but two of a Kalim, Ema, Hanasa, Government Nafshe. But over there, since they are close, you could use utensils, you could use grain. In other words, those are usable objects. Money, you have to buy something and then use that, right? Money is useless on its own, right? You're on an island with money, it's useless, right? You're on an island with kalim, you can use the kalim, right? So therefore, such a case, maybe I would say that person would be gomer makna nafshe, right, with tvua of kalim. So kamash malon, that according to them, so kamash malon, that tvua of kalim do not that tvua of kalim that those do work, right? Those do work according to him, and they're excuse me. If it's less than a sheva pruta, then even tvua v'kelim would not work at all to redeem. All right, we'll stop here. At the Zevis, you gonna be here tomorrow? Oh, it's like a 9:30 flight. Are you on the through where?